Wars usually come with a warning, a speech, a red line drawn on a podium with cameras rolling. What happened 48 hours ago came with none of that. The Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway that carries 20% of the world's oil supply, is functionally sealed. Brent crude has blown past $190 a barrel and is climbing. Three carrier strike groups are repositioning in the Arabian Sea, and the administration that triggered this crisis told the American public it would be over in 72 hours. It has been 9 days, and it is getting worse. The president did not just escalate tensions with Iran. He did not just ratchet up sanctions or fire off a threatening tweet. He greenlit a series of military strikes on Iranian Revolutionary Guard installations along the southern coastline. Strikes that were supposed to force Tehran to the negotiating table within a week. That was the assumption. Capitulation within days. Instead, Iran activated a contingency plan that Western intelligence agencies have been warning about for over a decade. They mined the strait. They deployed fast attack boats across the shipping lanes. They fired anti-ship missiles at commercial tankers flagged to 3 different nations. And in the gap between what Washington expected and what Tehran delivered, the global economy is now hemorrhaging $200 billion a week. Iran is not folding. Iran is retaliating with a precision that nobody in the West Wing anticipated, and the architects of this strategy never saw it coming. In the next few minutes, I am going to show you exactly how we got here. I am going to walk you through the intelligence that was ignored, the warnings that were overruled, and the chain of decisions that turned a contained standoff into what the Pentagon is now internally calling the most dangerous 72-hour window since the Cuban Missile Crisis. I am going to show you the documents, the sourced reporting, and the market data. And I am going to tell you why the world you are living in today is measurably more dangerous than the one you woke up in 2 weeks ago. Imagine you have a business partner. You have worked together for years. The arrangement is not perfect. There are disagreements, there is tension, but the partnership functions because both sides know the cost of blowing it up. Now imagine one partner walks into the office, flips the table, fires half the staff, and tells the other side they have 48 hours to accept new terms or the building burns down. And when the building actually catches fire, that partner stands outside and says, "Nobody can believe the success we are having." How long before you stop pretending this was the plan? Hold that thought, because that is exactly what the United States just did to the most volatile shipping corridor on the planet. Drop your answer in the comments. Did the White House walk into a trap of its own making? Or is there a strategy here that the rest of us simply cannot see? Let us rewind the clock, because this did not start 9 days ago. It started 11 weeks ago, in a secure briefing room at the Pentagon, when a small circle of national security officials presented the president with 3 options for addressing Iran's accelerating nuclear enrichment program. Option 1 was continued diplomatic engagement through back channels. Option 2 was expanded sanctions targeting Iran's oil exports to China. Option 3 was a kinetic strike package, targeted, limited, designed to destroy Revolutionary Guard infrastructure without triggering a wider war. The intelligence community recommended Option 1. The Joint Chiefs favored Option 2. The President chose Option 3. And here is the sentence that matters more than any other in this story. The entire strike plan was built on one catastrophic assumption, that Iran's leadership would absorb the blow and come to the table. That assumption was wrong. Not slightly wrong. Catastrophically, historically, generationally wrong. Because the man running Iran's military response is not a figurehead. He is Major General Hussein Salami, commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, a man who has spent 4 decades preparing for exactly this scenario. He trained his forces for asymmetric retaliation. He built redundancy into every supply chain. He positioned assets across 3 continents. He does not bluff. He does not posture for cameras. He executes. And when the first American cruise missiles hit Iranian soil, he did not panic. He gave a single order, and the Strait of Hormuz went dark. Receipt number 1. The International Energy Agency Emergency Session. According to the Financial Times, confirmed independently by Reuters, the IEA convened an unscheduled emergency meeting, only the 4th in the agency's history. The previous 3 were the Gulf War in 1991, Hurricane Katrina in 2005, and the Libyan civil war in 2011. Now stop right there. The IEA does not convene emergency sessions for posturing. They convene them when the physical supply of energy to the global economy is under immediate, confirmed threat. 27 member nations participated. The resolution authorized the coordinated release of strategic petroleum reserves, something that has not happened at this scale since the 1970s oil embargo. That is not a diplomatic signal. That is the international energy establishment saying out loud, "We do not have enough oil moving through the system to keep the lights on." 11 days ago, this was a regional standoff. It is now a global energy crisis, with the word emergency attached to it by the people whose job it is to never use that word. That tells you everything. Receipt number 2, the shipping freeze. Lloyd's of London, the insurance market that underwrites the majority of the world's commercial maritime fleet, has suspended coverage for any vessel transiting the Strait of Hormuz or the Gulf of Oman. That is confirmed. And here is the part that should make your blood boil. The administration told the public, on camera, at a press briefing, that commercial shipping was operating normally and that the strait was open. That was Tuesday. By Thursday, 17 tankers were anchored off Fujairah, refusing to move because their insurance had been pulled. 6 more turned around mid-transit. Not because Iran told them to stop, because the global insurance market told them they were uninsurable. The government told you the waterway was open. Then the companies that actually moved the oil said it was not. That is not a miscommunication. That is a lie told to a public that deserves better. If this story is connecting dots you have not seen assembled anywhere else, you are already ahead of most people watching this unfold. Because what I have not told you yet is what is happening behind the scenes. The alliances being redrawn, the emergency calls between Beijing and Riyadh, and the scenario that should terrify every person holding a retirement account in this country. Hit subscribe right now. This is accelerating faster than any single outlet can track, and you need to be here when the next piece drops. Now compare the reality on the ground to what the architects of this strategy are actually saying. The president told reporters at a press gaggle, and this is a direct quote, "We are in a fantastic position. Iran is begging to make a deal. You are going to see something beautiful happen." That was said while 17 tankers sat frozen off the coast of the UAE, while oil prices breached levels not seen since the 1979 crisis, while the Pentagon quietly extended deployments for 12,000 service members. And his analysis is that something beautiful is about to happen. A senior advisor was asked on a Sunday broadcast whether the administration had underestimated Iran's response capability. The answer was, "The president has always been 10 steps ahead of everyone in the room. Always. 10 steps ahead. With oil at 190, a shipping corridor sealed, and 3 allied nations recalling their ambassadors for consultations. These are not serious people managing a serious crisis. These are performers, staging confidence, while the global economy bleeds out in real time." Receipt number 3. Here is the part that should keep Washington awake at night. According to a classified assessment reported by the Wall Street Journal, sourced to 3 officials with direct knowledge, Iran has activated its proxy network across 4 countries simultaneously. Hezbollah has moved to its highest state of readiness since 2006. Houthi forces in Yemen have launched 3 additional strikes on commercial vessels in the Red Sea this week alone. Militia groups in Iraq have targeted American bases in Erbil and al-Assad with precision drone swarms, a capability that did not exist 18 months ago. And intelligence analysts are now tracking movement of Iranian-made missile components into Venezuela. Let that sink in. This is not contained to the Gulf. This is not a regional skirmish that stays in the Middle East section of the newspaper. The administration's strikes did not shrink Iran's threat footprint. They metastasized it across 4 theaters on 3 continents, exactly as the intelligence community warned would happen in a briefing the president reportedly left after 11 minutes. There is a way to understand what is happening here that cuts through the noise. On one side, you have an administration operating on instinct, gut feeling over intelligence, rally energy over risk assessment, a 19th century idea of force. Hit hard, they fold. On the other side, you have a military apparatus that has spent decades preparing for this exact confrontation. One side is improvising, the other side rehearsed. One side planned for 4 days, the other prepared for 40 years. One side builds the grievance, the other builds the response. One is noise, the other is architecture. The president issues ultimatums from a podium. Iran's military commanders issue orders from bunkers that were constructed specifically to survive the strikes that just hit them. One side performs confidence, the other earns results. And there is one image from this week that captures the entire story. On one side, a rally stage, music playing, a crowd being told the mission was accomplished. On the other side, satellite imagery showing Iranian fast boats repositioning into a formation that NATO analysts are calling the most sophisticated maritime denial operation since the Second World War. One side is spectacle, the other is strategy. And strategy is winning. So what does this actually mean for you? Not for diplomats, not for defense analysts with cable news contracts, for the person watching this right now. If you drive a car, and statistically, most of you do, the price you pay at the pump is directly tied to the Brent crude benchmark. Every barrel of oil that cannot transit the Strait of Hormuz gets repriced on the spot market within hours. Goldman Sachs has projected that if the strait remains closed for 30 days, gasoline prices in the United States will breach $6 a gallon nationally. In some states, $7. That is not a forecast for next year. That is a forecast for next month. If you hold a 401k or any retirement account with equity exposure, and if you are between 45 and 70, you almost certainly do, the S&P 500 has already dropped 11% in 9 trading days. The VIX, the volatility index that measures market fear, is at levels not seen since March 2020. This is not a blip. This is not a correction. This is the market pricing in the possibility that the world's most critical energy choke point stays closed for weeks. Every day it remains shut, your retirement account shrinks by a measurable, specific amount that you will feel when you open your statement. If you work in manufacturing, logistics, or any sector that depends on global shipping, the ripple effects are already arriving. Container rates from Asia to the East Coast have increased 43% in 8 days. Companies are rerouting around the Cape of Good Hope, adding 14 days and roughly $800,000 per vessel to transit costs. That cost does not disappear. It lands on the price of everything you buy. If you are a military family, and I say this with the respect that community deserves, there has been no formal congressional authorization for the strikes that started this. None. Your sons and daughters are in harm's way on the legal basis of an executive order, not a vote by the people's representatives. The administration responsible is on television saying nobody can believe the success. The families receiving deployment extension notices would disagree. Here is the hard truth. Iran did not want this escalation. The intelligence record is clear. Tehran was engaged in back-channel negotiations through Oman as recently as 6 weeks ago. They were talking. Not because they are peaceful, because the math favored diplomacy over confrontation. But the strikes eliminated that lane. And once you eliminate the diplomatic lane for a regime that has spent 40 years building a military response for exactly this moment, you do not get compliance. You get the Strait of Hormuz mined, insured shipping frozen, and a proxy network activated across 4 countries. Iran is not doing this out of pride. They are doing it because the math now demands it. The president did not launch those strikes to make you safer. He launched them because a small circle of advisors told him it would be fast, clean, and politically advantageous. The cost is already arriving, and the people responsible are on television calling it a success.
Where does this go from here?
I see 3 paths. The first is the managed path. Back-channel negotiations resume. A Gulf state, likely Oman or Qatar, brokers a quiet de-escalation. Iran reopens the strait in exchange for a sanctions framework that gives both sides a face-saving off-ramp. This is the best case. But even in this best case, the damage is permanent. The insurance markets do not forget. Lloyd's will reprice Gulf transit risk for a generation. Every shipping company in the world just learned that the Strait of Hormuz can be shut down in 72 hours by a motivated state actor. That calculation does not get unlearned. The new risk premium is baked in forever. Energy costs stay elevated even after the crisis ends. The trust that kept global commerce flowing through that corridor cheaply and reliably is gone. It does not come back because someone signs an agreement. The second is the realignment. This is the scenario that should genuinely terrify the White House. China, India, and the Gulf states are watching this unfold and drawing conclusions. If the United States can destabilize the world's most critical shipping lane through unilateral military action, every major energy importer on Earth just received the same lesson at the same time. Reduce your dependence on American security guarantees. Beijing is already in direct talks with Riyadh about oil for yuan settlement. India is accelerating pipeline negotiations with Russia. The Gulf states are quietly shopping for security partnerships that do not come with the risk of an American president deciding to start a war on their doorstep. And once those new architectures are built, once the alternative payment systems, the new naval patrol agreements, the bilateral energy deals are signed, they do not restructure back. The United States does not lose its role as global energy guarantor because someone else took it. It loses it because it proved the role was unreliable. The third path is the one nobody wants to say out loud: the escalation spiral. Iran does not de-escalate. The United States doubles down. A miscalculation, a drone strike that hits the wrong target, a naval engagement that kills Iranian sailors, a proxy attack that produces American casualties, triggers a cycle that neither side can exit. You would normally say no president would be that reckless with the global economy, with American lives, with the architecture of international order. But normal left the building a long time ago, and there are no more guardrails. Here is what I know for certain. Regardless of which path plays out, whether this ends in 6 days or 6 months, the world that existed before those strikes is not coming back. The Strait of Hormuz has been proven vulnerable. The insurance markets have repriced. The alternative energy routes are being built. The alternative payment systems are being negotiated. The alternative security partnerships are being signed. Even if a deal is reached tomorrow, even if Iran reopens the strait by the weekend, the strategic lesson has been delivered to every nation on Earth that depends on that waterway, and that lesson is permanent. Once the bypass architecture is built, it does not get dismantled because someone holds a signing ceremony. It becomes the new normal. The next decade of global energy infrastructure is being designed right now in Beijing, in Riyadh, in New Delhi, in Abu Dhabi, everywhere except Washington. The president is looking at the next rally. The rest of the world is looking at the next decade. And right now, the next decade is being built without the United States at the table. Did Iran seal that strait because they wanted to? Or did the United States hand them the justification on a silver platter, and Iran simply did what 40 years of preparation trained them to do? And when the gas prices hit $6, when the retirement accounts show the damage, when the deployment letters arrive at homes that never asked for this war, will the people who cheered for those strikes still say it was worth it? What does American credibility look like in the Gulf 12 months from now? And who is filling the vacuum? Drop your answers in the comments. I read every single one. Subscribe because the next chapter of this story is already being written. The emergency OPEC session is scheduled for Thursday, and the congressional authorization vote is being forced to the floor. This story is not slowing down. Do not look away. This content is commentary and analysis for informational purposes only. It does not constitute financial, legal, or geopolitical advice. Consult qualified experts before making any decisions based on the information presented.